right? You are able to say?
Not yet, but I see that you're showing. Yes, I can see them now. Okay. Can you put it into presentation mode for me, Milind?
Yes, just a minute so that I will do. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Milind. So my name is Professor Nipamani, and I'm the Program Director of the MSc Global Management and Digital Competencies. And this is an MSc program that my university, the ESB Business School, offers with several international partners. And I briefly would like to tell you about it. As Milind said, it's a program that prepares you for a career in this era of digital disruption. And what the program offers you on the one hand is global management, but also all of the digital competencies you need in order to be a competent manager in the future. So it's not teaching you programming, but it's teaching you about how to analyze and present data. It's teaching you things like, how do I lead in this era of digital disruption? How do I, for example, transform traditional supply chains to smart supply chains? All of these kinds of issues. The program is a 15-month program, and it's taught completely in English. So you don't need to have any other language apart from English to be able to do it. The advantage of the program is that it allows you to study in 2 countries. So you can study in Ireland and Germany, France and Germany, Ireland and France. These are the partners that are involved in this program. All of the schools that are involved, like SP Jain, are AACSB accredited schools. We have excellent links to industry. And at the end of the program, you obtain 2 MSc degrees. On graduation, what you can then do is you can work in those countries. So you can work in Ireland, you can work in France, you can work in Germany, because you get a work visa for a minimum of 1 year. So this helps you to fast track your career in Europe. And on graduation, there are very good job prospects. If I look at the German market, the graduates are starting typically in Germany earning about 60,000 euros. There is a lot of demand from the German market for the skill set that comes out of the program, and you don't need to be able to speak German. These companies need you if you're qualified and if you have successfully completed the program. In order to apply to the program, you need to have a good bachelor degree, with a minimum of 4 business modules at undergraduate level, or to have completed the SP Jain Global Management Program. You need a 6-month minimum work experience, but this can be, for example, internships that you've done during your bachelor degree, and you need very good English skills because the program is completely in English. And you can see on the bottom there the link to full details on the program. You can see on the right-hand side the choice of tracks. So there are 3 tracks. You can start in Dublin and then finish in Germany. Dublin, as you probably know, is an important digital hub in Europe. The ESP Business School is regarded in Germany as being Little Harvard, and we're located very near to Stuttgart. We're in the heart of the car industry in Germany, where the car industry is located in Germany. Our other partner is Neoma, the French business school located in the Champagne region and also very close to Paris. So you could do Neoma ESB would be a link, or you can do Neoma Dublin City University. So all of these 3 links give you a double degree at the end. And I hope that I've maybe, whetted your appetite for the program. And as I say, you have the link here if you want to look into it further. And now we're going to come back to why we're really here, Milind. So passing things back to you.
Okay. So thank you. And if any one of the participants have questions with respect to program, I think you can put in the chat and I will take it in the Q&A sessions at that time. So Dipali, I will require some moderation if anybody has put the questions on the program. Generally, we should take it in the second half.
Yes, I'll put them on the chat.
Okay. So coming back to the today's topic, as I mentioned, we have this series going on generative AI with ChatGPT, and we have Professor Sachit today, who is expert on the large language models. He has also done very interesting work with respect to using them in the different law-related activities, including exams. So before I enter into any discussion, will you able to give some quick summary what you have observed, Sasha? So that that is a summary, and then you can use perhaps your slides and all, but your overall view how this entire landscape is working, so that people get some feeling or perspective what kind of questions they can ask you.
Mhm. Yeah, the entire landscape is developing for many years already, and well, at least since 2017, there are some real breakthroughs in the technology. But now, with some delay, it really arrived in our reality, and that's what we observe now with the introduction of ChatGPT, in particular in 2022 to the broader public. This thing got into the awareness of society. So before, basically, many things, they were very technical. I was working with company departments to allow for the use of very special tools that only few people knew about, that already managed to create a lot of business value. But now we see the broad interest and a lot of applications that are partly new, and partly it's really about the awareness of this. And that's why the focus moved more to evaluating, to seeing how things integrate, how humans and AI collaborate. So the implications became more important compared to the early years when I was focused much more on the data itself and on the algorithms.
So how this field is impacting education, because a lot of these students are also interested, saying how Germany or any other European schools are coping with this, and how it is impacting education, because we have also done
Yeah.
exams in ChatGPT. That's what I heard about.
Yeah, it's a moment of wonder and panic, one might say. So it's amazing how quickly these tools arrived in education. Students are using them, not all of them. So we see very different pace, very different affinity. Some who, well, I had one student in a recent lecture who had never used a smartphone at all, and who grew up in a household that is basically anti-technology. So she really asked about how to approach the whole landscape of technology. But
Mhm.
on average, there is a lot going on, and many students, they know how to use the tools. And when this all started with this ChatGPT big bang, so to speak, we had many different reactions. So different institutions, different universities. In the first moment, you say the whole range from banning it completely to encouraging students to use it and explore it. And
Mhm.
we are a bit in between, but more on the explorer side, I would say. So we made a lot of experience already to see students work with new generative AI tools. And we see many things they can do, like improved text quality, fewer language barriers, in particular when finishing your thesis project. That's still not about writing in Germany. But we also see some traps and risk, like when students don't always have to go the whole way of deeply thinking. The whole process of writing, it used to be like a very important part of developing your thinking skills. And there are some cases already when this can become a bit less obvious to the student that this part is important too.
Do you allow students to use ChatGPT? The reason was saying because in the
Yes.
last one of the webinars, some of the participants were interested, because a lot of participants who try to pursue the education in Germany are afraid of the German language. So the key question is how this particular generative AI can use this international student to cope up with this language barrier. Do you have
Uh,
any ideas on that?
I think that's one of the areas where you can already see it. When I read thesis projects, the language quality improved. That's clear. Yeah, as I mentioned, we do allow it. There are some rules and guidelines. So you have to indicate the usage. You have to be responsible for the content that you produce, as we see ChatGPT not as a source, but as a tool. So it is still the responsibility of the student to really find the original source, to check all of the argument, the reasoning behind all they do. But as a tool for language, we do support it. And in this program, it's an English program. So actually, I think there it's maybe even less problematic than in other programs that might be in other languages.
Okay, thank you for your quick introduction. I think for a focused topic, you can take your own task and then we will start the discussion from that. I think you have some slides as well, which you want to use and give our viewers some perspective about the dimensions which you want to discuss about generative AI.
Exactly. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Great. So thank you very much, Milind, and thank you, Nief, for the introduction. I'm very happy to share one or two examples of the application of generative AI and AI in general in data analytics. And also, I would like to give you a broader perspective on the strategic implications, the risk and the opportunity for your future career. So let me start with the first part. In data analytics and data science, as I'm a professor of data science, we spend a lot of time with data cleaning. You might think data science, it's all about the algorithm, about finding the perfect machine learning tool and optimizing it to the best. But actually, in a survey conducted a few years ago, it turned out that it's not only me spending 80% of my time preparing data, collecting data, even if the data is already collected, to clean it and improve it. But in general, about 80% of the time of a data scientist and even more of a data analyst, it's spent with preparing data. That could actually be a good thing. You might wonder if that's a fun task, and data scientists love to clean data. But in the same survey, it turned out that that's not the case. So here you see the two distributions. They look kind of similar. Actually, that most common task, it's at the same time the least enjoyable task for many data scientists. So that's why in this area of data preparation, I would like to give you an example for how we can do it more efficiently with generative AI. One type of data that can cause a lot of trouble, it's text data, because one type of unstructured data, so it doesn't really fit into our traditional table structure with the columns and the lines that we need to have to conduct traditional statistics. Instead, we do have all kinds of different text. And this example here, it is from our recent work on analyzing student reviews on one of our undergraduate programs. There's a German review platform, external, not affiliated with our university, that provides students with the opportunities to give those reviews. And here we see one of them, kind of typical. It's a medium length one. Some they are only like one sentence, some they can be very long. Most of them, luckily, they are positive. And here you see the two components of that review. One is the title, Learn Hard, but Party Even Harder. And the second component, the text. So there are multiple thoughts on the program. It lives up to its motto. You have to study a lot for the exams, but you also get a lot out of it, and there's a lot going on. So what to do with that in terms of data analysis? It's one example, but actually the structure of these reviews, it looks very different. The students have very different style. They talk about different things. So how can we unify this? Traditionally, this would be a lot of work mostly manual work for scientists or people involved in the project to do a coding of this, to identify aspects that can be counted and quantified in some way. And while we do also have multiple tools to deal with text data that could help with that work, like word counting and other techniques, but they struggle with this data because the reviews are so different. So what we did here is that we fed this into, in that case, ChatGPT. So we packaged this review into a prompt that gives instructions about how to analyze and structure this data for further analysis. So first, what we do is we give ChatGPT a very clear idea of what our purpose and context of this analysis is, and explain in clear words what it should output. So we need to have abstract terms that are short and can be compared across multiple reviews. Then we give it the data. In the end, we repeat the instructions because we know that these generative AI models still struggle with distraction. So if in the review there would be any unexpected words, and we don't know which would cause that kind of behavior, then that can affect the formatting of the result or some other aspect of this. So it can be very helpful to repeat the instruction in the end again to make it very salient in this. And another trick we use to make sure that the coding, it stays consistent across multiple reviews from one to the next, we give it all the codes that already appeared in the analysis before. As I mentioned, there are multiple reviews. We are dealing with about 300 of them. So for this particular review, the coded aspects that ChatGPT finds are international atmosphere. And you can notice here, it kept to the instruction. That's very lucky for us. So it's the same wording like we inserted before. And then it found 3 more aspects that were not mentioned in the reviews before: high learning curve, great events, helpful lecturers, that were coded in a similar way. And in the next round, for the next review, we would insert these as well. Other aspects were not identified, so we can continue. And this whole thing, well, now here it looks simple, but I need to insert a word of caution. You cannot simply run this and be fine. At the moment, you will still encounter cases that are outside of this perfect result. So this is all embedded in a larger code base that is inserting the prompts, that is checking the result, that is pointing out inconsistencies, that will re-enter the prompt if it doesn't fit into the whole pattern. If we don't do that, the resulting table of codes, it would still be too large. But it's that good already that with a few tweaks here and there, we can run all the 300 and arrive at a table that in the end we can put into a data analysis tool. Let me quickly switch to that one. I hope the screen is still visible. That's the result in Tableau. It's in German. So, but what you see is that we arrive at something international experience, applied profile that makes a lot of sense. And that's a good plausibility check for us that this kind of algorithm actually works. Traditionally, we would have spent much more time. Now we were able to cost effectively prepare that data for quantitative analysis. So that's the one example for how generative AI can support data analysis with unstructured data. But there are still many pitfalls, as I mentioned, and I would like to step a bit outside of the generative AI to give you one famous example that you might not have heard of yet. Otherwise, stick with me. This is the case of jaywalking in China. As you might know, in China, many cities have a lot of cameras. And in one of these large cities, there was a pilot project to detect jaywalking people So each time someone walks when there's a red traffic light, the camera was supposed to not only take the picture, but also to forward it to a large monitor in the street that would embarrass the person. So this system is a piece of social engineering to make people embarrassed of jaywalking, basically. And that works only with AI. So there are some neural network algorithms, most likely convolutional neural networks that detect the images of people walking, and that's embedded in some larger system. Now, one of these jaywalkers happened to be Dong Mingchu. Don't know if you're familiar with her. She's actually a famous Chinese businesswoman. That's kind of surprising. It would be a bit like putting Modi to the large screen and embarrassing the president for jaywalking. That doesn't feel quite right. So how could this high-level person become a criminal traffic offender? What happened? Well, actually, she did not, because what happened here is that a bus was crossing the street, and that bus did legally the crossing as the traffic light for the cars was green, but on the side of the bus, there was an advertisement for Dong. So it showed her face on a large print, and that was detected by the cameras. It was a jaywalking bus ad, so to speak. That's one of the many failures we can see with AI. It does struggle a lot with things that seem obvious to us. We would understand the context that this is actually not a person walking the street. But in general, AI is still not very good in these obvious things because it does not have the complete experience that we have. And even though this system was tested by many people and developed in a country and an environment that has experts for this, they did not detect that issue in the beginning. So not only the AI is not perfect, but also when we develop the AI, we are not perfect in anticipating these gaps in the context knowledge. And well, why do I show you this example? I think it really illustrates one of the areas where you do have some opportunity to still excel the AI and be complementary. So if it's about awareness of context and complex tasks, then humans are still in many cases superior to AI, all kinds of AI. And an additional item I put here, defining your own goals and being responsible, owning a decision. That comes back to the human too, because here in that case, I don't think that the traffic camera was punished, but I guess this was not a great result for the designer of the system. Then in other areas, humans might already be kind of deprecated, of course not completely, but at least on some levels, in some cases, the generative AI can be better in providing a fast and simple solution at low cost. It's very good in writing flawless syntax. That's another thing in teaching. Milind, you were asking me about what I observed in teaching. Well, from my past experience, I know that we need to spend a lot of time talking about syntax, and students in the beginning, they often struggle with that. Like some I worked with before, they had a really hard time to load the CSV file to get the data in the first place because there are some small syntactical problems that humans are not very good in dealing with. And AI can do that already on a more intuitive level or support us in writing correct syntax in many cases. There are those examples when it's integrated in our development environment, making it even more accessible to humans. So we don't need to put as much effort as we used to in learning that. And also another one, immediate generation of ideas. While humans, they are still often better in generating a very good idea, but when it's about coming up with many ideas cost effectively, then AI, it's simply there immediately and can give you as many ideas as you like. So these are just some examples. Basically, AI, it's already there in some certain skills, but not in all of them. Some, it's better already than humans, or at least more cost effective. Some it's not. Now, if I stopped here, you would say, perfect, no problem. I know what to focus on. Now I can plan my career. It's all good. My future is safe. But that would be short-sighted, I think. When we look into the literature on innovations, one very relevant thought, it's this one. Let me start with that quote by Clayton Christensen. He said that working harder, being smarter, investing more aggressively, and listening more astutely to customers are all solutions to the problems posed by new sustaining technologies. But these paradigms of sound management are useless, even counterproductive in many instances, when dealing with disruptive technology. So, okay, what does Christensen mean by that? Well, let me explain. The background, it's about this picture. What you see here is two innovations or two products. The green line is the old product by the incumbent company. In our example, that would be the human. We are a tool to solving problems. The human starts somewhere here in the beginning of the timeline. And you see on the vertical axis the performance. How well can the product or the human solve a problem? And what you see is in the beginning, it's actually not that good. So for the need of the customer, for the need of the solution, when the human is born, when the human first came into the world and maybe starting in a cave, it was on a rather low performance level, not meeting most of the needs of today's customers or the customers back then. But well, that's only the average. Many problems it could already solve. But then over time, the human does improve. We learn, not only as an individual, but also as a collective. We get a better education system. We get better tools around us. So we simply get better incrementally over time until at some point we can solve most of the problems. And now there comes a new product. In this case, the new product might be the generative AI. That product in the beginning, it also struggles. Typically, it's actually worse than the existing human. That's what we see now. So the humans, they are already on a level typically that can solve almost all the problems. But the AI, it's not there yet. It can solve some of the problems. So why should we use it? Well, because this two axes, the performance of the problem solution and the time, they are not the whole story. There's more to it. There's another dimension that I did not put here, or Clayton didn't put it here when he came up with the picture, because actually, even if it's worse, we might still use AI because we have it at our fingertips. We can use it now. It's fast. It's cost effective. So if we can meet our customer need here, if we are one of those, not the average, but we want something simple, then we can already use it. Now, over time, both actually the AI is getting better, but also humans are getting better. So that's what you could do now. If you follow the slide before, you could try to get even better in what you're doing. So incrementally, piece by piece, you become even better understanding the context of the world, for example. But in some way, the AI will also get better. It will never get better than you, because in this very simple model, it's not the reality, right? We simplify here. But in that simple case, actually, the AI, it's only improving in the same rate like the human. That assumption might not be true. It might actually overtake us. But let's be conservative and say, okay, it's just improving the same way. It always stays worse. At each point of time here, you see the distance stays the same. But it does at some point fulfill the average need of the customer. So now if we go forward in time, what we see with the disruptive innovation, and my perspective here is that AI is a disruptive innovation. At some point, it will cover almost everything. At that point, we have run into this trap here. We are now a niche product. The human, it's better, it's much better, but it focused on becoming perfect in something where you don't need perfect, where the good solution might be enough. So that can be a strategy if you want to be in the niche. But then again, if you want to make sure that the market leader in the future will still be the human, there needs to be something in addition. We cannot only focus on building on our one main strength. We also need to keep in mind that we could run into this trap. And that's why a little bit later, I would like to give you some more ideas about what you can do to avoid the niche trap. Before I do that, just one more example to demonstrate how AI is improving incrementally at the moment, actually in pretty large steps. My colleague, Professor Konrads, and I recently did a study on how well different chatbots can solve German law exams in business law. And what you see here are the percentage points for correct answers in writing expert opinions with Google Bard, ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4. And actually, not long ago, the chatbot on average could not pass the exam. So ChatGPT 3.5, it stayed under the threshold of 50% that the student would need to pass that exam. Now, go a little bit forward in time, and ChatGPT 4, it actually passes the exam. And we can replicate that with many questions. In the real exam, you have only 8 of them. We input 200 of them. And we did so repeatedly to also see how robust the result is. And what we see is, in general, ChatGPT 4 will pass that exam. That means that in a way, we did hit that line now, and we can already fulfill some requirement that can solve some problem. It cannot replace the lawyer, but in a way it can replace the business law examinee in terms of having similar ability here. And it's prone to improve in the future. So we see incremental improvement in big steps at the moment. The steps could be larger or smaller in the future, but it's pretty clear where it's moving. So that brings me back to the recommendations on the final slide. There are these, I would call them more short-term solutions to focus on our strength. And we need to do that. They stay relevant. But at the same time, I think we are well advised to have a slightly broader, more futuristic perspective. So what else can we do to stay ahead and maintain a larger scope of action beyond the niche that we might end up in otherwise? Well, one of these items I simply moved from the left to the right. Being responsible is still a thing humans can do very well because we feel pain. So basically, that ability to experience and to feel, it makes us very receptive to consequences. And it's also an important ethical component of all of this, that humans are still in the loop in terms of the responsibility. And then, second point, now we are just starting to develop these systems. And there are 2 basic approaches. You can go all in for AI and develop something very simple that works only with AI, or you can keep the human in the loop. And well, in some cases, it can be simpler to use only the AI, but if you think ahead, actually, you might want to have that path dependency. And path dependency, it's very strong. Don't underestimate the historical entanglements we have. If we develop AI together with humans now, and we work with the AI, then the way it will be developed will create certain dependencies that will be very difficult to disentangle in the future. So the complexity we insert here, it will benefit us in the future, I think, from all we know about the way technology develops. And then third point, some elements of the AI will develop amazingly and some won't. I have my ideas and suspicions about that, but I wouldn't bet on it. So to be on the safe side, to diversify can help here. There will be some elements that the AI cannot replace in the medium term and maybe even long term. So if you really put together a good skill set, not just the one thing that you focus on, but maybe 3 or 4 that you're good in and that can create a combination that works for you and can make you kind of unique, it's much more likely that you still have the foot in the door, figuratively speaking, so the door doesn't close behind you, and that one skill, you don't know which of the 3 or 4, can still keep you relevant. So that's my 3 ideas in the long term that I was going to demonstrate here. There might be others. So that thought process, it's not finished yet. I'm very curious if you have better ideas or other ideas. The main point here is think about what can help you in the long term, what can help you to stay relevant in the face of a disruptive innovation. That's the conclusion here. So thank you very much for your interest, and I'm looking forward to discussing with you.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Sacha, for your excellent insights on Clayton Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation. So I have put one follow-up question which was getting asked on the chat window. Mobile in 2007, when smartphone has announced, removed the asymmetry of information because it was available to everybody because it was not very few. So there is a question, with generative AI likely to remove asymmetry of intelligence? Will the inequality in intelligence will get equalized?
Is that question directed to me? Am I Mr. Q? Or it's Q Mobile? Well, it goes both ways, actually. You can make the case that the asymmetry is removed by distributing intelligence more broadly. At the moment, luckily, we do have the access to those OpenAI models. It's not actually obvious that that would be the case. They still have very large infrastructure, so we depend on them to provide that to us. We can use similar models locally, but they are not quite there yet. So if you want to play in the highest league of artificial intelligence at the moment, there's also some dependency. Keeping that aside, if you have them available, and in the future, my prediction would be that the local solutions, open source solutions that are even more easily accessible in the future, that they will. If you have them available, in many cases, this can help to elevate the people who did not have the capacity in themselves or the tools and information in their environment to make good use of their intelligence. There are actually some studies on that with service employees. If you provide them with generative AI tools, then the low performance, I'm not trying to offend, but simply in terms of their KPIs, they get elevated. So the high performance, they don't gain as much in that scenario, but those on the lower end of performance, in those studies that I'm aware of, they get maybe not exactly to the highest level, but to a level closer, and the dispersion gets lower. That's the good news. But then there's also the other side. When it's about very demanding tasks, if you consider the area of law, like what my colleague and I investigated, actually, the solutions that are provided by the AI at the moment, they look very good. And if we let amateurs, legal amateurs like myself, if I work with them, they look good to me. I would simply go for that solution and base my defense or my legal decision on that. But that would be a mistake in many cases. So actually, in that case, my performance, it might actually get worse. The lawyer who knows about the background, who's familiar with the law, can benefit a lot. It can get faster in the decision-making and the preparation of documents and so on. But me as the non-lawyer, I can even get into trouble. So in that case, if it's on a very high expert level, the overall asymmetry might actually increase. Does that answer the question? Or is it
Yes,
maybe
I
already
think,
too much on the question?
yeah, that's could be. So I think the question was related to, you said it, some ideas will develop quickly. So there was a question here to me saying that which ideas will develop quickly. Maybe these people wants to work on those ideas first.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think the processing of text and standard cases, like a lot of that work in between, not the top level management, not the physical actions that need to be taken in a company, but the default request that gets a default response that might be solved very quickly. That works pretty well because you have a lot of training data for that, a lot of default cases, and you don't have a very high level of complexity. Then there's a lot of immediate potential in the integration of different systems. You saw that with the introduction of plugins in ChatGPT. You see that with AutoGen that was recently introduced by Microsoft. Those two ideas are making use of integration. So in one case, you integrate existing systems like Wolfram Alpha with ChatGPT or Wikipedia or legal systems. So there are already open source projects that offer you to index your existing legal data like law and so on, or other knowledge sources together with the capabilities of generative AI. So you can get to more knowledge-based, in a way more safe technology. And also the other way, you can integrate more AIs together. So you can provide context by letting one AI check the other AI and by interacting with the world. That would be the approach of AutoGen. So I think these directions to integrate with existing systems, to automate simple tasks like sorting documents, responding to default requests, they are all maybe not the right time to work on them because people are working on them, or maybe it is because you can do it better or faster than those working on it. But that's the immediate next step.
Okay, there is a student question. Textbooks, some are big ones all around me. How can Gen AI will help me to improve my study productivity and effectiveness?
Textbooks, you said?
Yes, you can see here. This is the
I'm
student.
looking for, yes, some are big ones, yeah. Yeah. Reading yourself and letting AI read for you, they are two different things. Well, it can help you to get an overview. To AI, it's pretty good in summarizing text, as you might know, but it's not that good in inserting all the knowledge of a textbook into your mind. The problem with large textbooks, it is that you can't keep the attention. At some point, like after page number 5, you might look like this, you might be sleeping on the textbook. So what AI can do, in addition to summarizing the book, in that case, you get only part of the information, you can interactively explore the content. So I think that's a huge opportunity to ask questions, to do some of the input yourself, to interact, to keep your attention mostly, and then go into the back and forth with the chatbot instead of passively reading. That's maybe the main contribution there for your learning. And also it will help you to do more of the writing. When you're reading the textbook, then usually it's very one way, but you don't practice your own thinking necessarily. When you're writing, when you're wording a question to the AI, then you need to put it down yourself, and that active part, it can also be very helpful in really internalizing the knowledge for yourself. The problem is, maybe one caveat before we proceed. The problem is, at the moment, if you're talking to ChatGPT, you can't be sure if the information is correct. So you have the population. The skill you need to develop first is to be critical before you do that interaction.
Okay. There was another question. What are dark side of these technologies and can create destructive effects?
Yeah, well, intelligence is also a weapon, I would say. So the dark side is pretty obvious. it makes people more powerful. It makes them accomplish things. And as with a knife, the famous example, you can use it to cut the cheese or the bread, and you can also use it to attack a person. And the same holds here. And that's a very obvious danger. And then we have the whole range. There's a very long time dystopian danger of AI becoming conscious. I don't see that at the moment at all, but also I guess, too stupid about consciousness because I don't know quite what it is. That's why I might not have the vision yet to see when it could come. So that whole larger alignment problem to contain the AI when it becomes more autonomous and independent, that might be a bit more far away. I wouldn't worry about it too much at the moment. But there are also subtle problems more immediately. Even with a very stupid AI of only the Facebook or YouTube recommendation algorithm, we did see how that could run into trouble because it had a single objective goal that was not even malevolent. It was only to engage you, to keep your attention. And that goal could come up with bad stuff. Like YouTube might show you very violent or inciting videos because they keep your attention. So AI, it doesn't know the full context, like I demonstrated before. So you need to be aware of the context yourself to not run into the problem that in the end, the optimizing of the one goal by the AI destroys the world, like it almost did with social media. Well, it didn't turn out that bad. But in other cases, if we integrate it more broadly and in more subtle ways that we might not even notice, then this could become a problem on an even larger scale.
There is another question. Thesis work will bit easier was your comment. Can you explain bit detail how it will help in research?
Yeah. Well, in the thesis work, I was mostly talking about the writing part itself to improve your text quality. That's what we see at the moment. There are also some risk in terms of the source. Don't forget to check the source. There are some tools that do that better than ChatGPT. For example, Elicit. I don't know if you came across that one. It's another AI system to
Yes,
do Google Scholar search,
I use
basically.
it quite a lot. They have released a
Yeah.
new version, which is very good reading in PDFs and extracting data.
Yeah, so you're familiar. So here, if you do the literature review work, I would go for the more dedicated tools or use the plugins for ChatGPT to integrate with Google Scholar to be sure that you're actually dealing with the real literature. In scientific work, it's very important to be exact, to check everything, to do critical thinking, to challenge what you wrote. And that can be also supported by ChatGPT and other tools. So you can challenge yourself with it. You can ask it to give you hints how to improve, but don't rely on it. So basically, it's creating more work for you by challenging yourself in a way, but that can improve the quality. In terms of working faster, it can also help you to get faster to the right source in the literature, since now we deal with that flood of information. And that's one way to approach that, to go immediately to what you're actually looking for, if you know what tool to use.
And there was a question here to prompt me how to integrate Google Scholar and ChatGPT.
Yeah, there's a plugin. So if you're using the Plus version of ChatGPT, you can use plugins and select the Google Scholar plugin. In that case, it will pull data from Google Scholar search and work with that text output from the search. And you can follow the procedure. You can see what kind of search was done and what the result was on Google Scholar. That's the way I'm aware of. It's not superior to Elicit in my experience. So in terms of the research itself, I would prefer Elicit, but then you have the full capabilities of ChatGPT. So if you want to do other stuff, more complicated prompts, then it can still be a good way.
What are the useful plugins for research? That was another question here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Scholar, there's at least one plugin, the most popular one. It's a good one. If you're doing a lot of quantitative research, then definitely check out Wolfram Alpha. So if it's about doing differential equations, that's one topic I'm dealing with, then that's the tool to go for. And it does solve many things ChatGPT cannot. Then what else for
Indian
research?
side,
Yeah.
I mean, he has not asked, but I will ask on behalf of the students, econometrics, because that is where most of the people who are not from engineering background struggle. So you have any advice to them, because that is what they struggle in thesis work.
Yeah, I think actually ChatGPT, it's pretty good in explaining the statistics. So the main thing I go to it for econometrics is to understand algorithms I'm not as familiar with better by challenging my understanding of it. In terms of conducting econometrics, the more popular and open the language, the more familiar ChatGPT is with it. So if you're using R, then asking for R code, that's a pretty good bet. It will work pretty well. If you're using some more exotic statistics system, it might not work that well. So for me, at least, the two main applications. One is to understand better algorithms I'm not as familiar with, and to compare the Wikipedia, the textbook, the paper, and what ChatGPT says about the algorithm. And then the second, to actually implement in the code. And then I think it's a good tool if I use R and similar systems.
Yeah, I think there was a question you covered. What is AutoGen? I think it appeared twice. So can you please again explain what was AutoGen of Microsoft?
Yeah, it's a package provided by Microsoft that can administrate multiple AI agents. So the idea is that it's acting partly autonomously by starting a request to some API, for example, to ChatGPT. You start with one text prompt that you insert manually in the code, but then you can define certain rules for how it shall proceed. So which chatbots shall it include? Which roles and context shall they take on? For example, there could be one chatbot, the user, and one chatbot, the examiner or the double check agent that will check all the answers, and another chatbot in between that is the problem solver. So now the user can ask the problem solver. That will give you a solution, and the double check tool can check if that looks all right, can challenge it, can ask for another solution and compare them. And so you can construct a whole pipeline of flexible agents that work together to solve your problem. You don't need to interfere at all in between. And in the end, you get the result that those agents agree on.
Okay.
And you can use it. It's available open source. So that's a product you, if I'm not mistaken, you don't even need an account for. You can simply look into the documentation.
Okay. There was another question. ChatGPT gives wrong solution a lot of time. How do you tackle that? Many times we do not know how to detect the chatbot is wrong.
Yeah, that's a big problem for the students. So if you're the expert in the domain, like the lawyer or the professor for a certain subject, then your chance is a bit higher that you can detect the wrong solution. But if you're starting without the background knowledge, then that's very difficult. It's even more difficult because the text quality is so high and looks all very convincing. So one way is to really do the hard work and go back to the source. So you need to check the reliable either encyclopedia or textbook or scientific paper, or to talk to the human expert. Or the more lazy, more automatic version would be you can use AutoGen and let multiple chatbots challenge each other. By that, you decrease the likelihood of the confabulation because it will be criticized, but still not 100% sure. There will be a remaining uncertainty that in that group discussion of the agents, they came to the wrong conclusion. Another automatic way to exclude the confabulation would be the plug-in again. So you can pull in external data For example, you can work with the indexing for generative AI. That's a pretty new approach to integrate it into databases. Or you can work with a plugin that opens the Wikipedia page or the paper within the generative AI.
There was another question, does AI will rule the future on the jobs? I think future of jobs, I think that must be the one.
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. We all would like to know what will happen. There was that announcement by IBM that they would lay off, I don't know by heart, but something like 20%, 30% of employees because of generative AI. And well, a few months forward, they took that back, and then it was, we need to hire more people. So it's very hard to predict, even if you're the company hiring in that area. At the moment, there's so much new things going on. We need to implement all that. We need to collect the initial data for what humans are doing. So my immediate prediction would be we won't have too much job loss overall in the next few years. There will be a huge loss in certain areas that I'm not sure which it will be, but some areas might be affected like 100%, and other areas like data analysts, programmers, they first might have increase in jobs, so overall might stay stable or even more. But long term, it's a different story. Like I said, at some point, if we are not cautious to become a niche product ourselves, then I could not make any prediction about what job might not be affected. Just we don't know how long the long term is here.
Yeah, so since we have some very few minutes left, we will have 5-6 minutes extension, but there are some questions left on the program. Should I prompt those questions to you?
Absolutely, yep.
There are, I will club and ask questions, credit and fee advantage through GMP. I am not sure, but you would like to answer that question?
So I think I also saw some other questions with regard to the transfer of credit from the GMP to the MSc. There is no credit transfer. The function of the GMP, as far as its pathway works, is the GMP provides people who have no business background at bachelor in order to have the minimum requirement to be able to enter the program and complete the program successfully. So it's not a transfer of credit, but we see the GMP as this preparation course for people who have no business background at bachelor level to prepare them to enter the MSc. The program is a program that has program costs, and the costs depend on the link that you choose. That's why I didn't talk about costs today. But if anybody's interested, have a look at the link that that's in the slides, and you'll be able to see how much the program actually costs. And the third question, Milind, was?
No, there are questions saying, are there any scholarship available in Ireland for master in AI/ML? I'm not sure, is it the same program or it is a different program?
So I can't answer any questions about Ireland. I might have an Irish surname, but myself and Sasha are both working for a German university. So I don't consider myself competent to answer any questions about scholarships available in Ireland.
Okay. Now, Roshan Kumar, he has asked the question, but I'm not sure if he's online, he wants to speak. How a fresher can start the use successful? I'm not clear. Roshan, are you online? If you are online, you can raise the hand. We will give you an opportunity. But since your question is not very clear, I'm not able to formulate correctly. Okay, I think unemployment I have already asked. Roshan Kumar, again the name, the tool, sir. Roshan, you have 2-3 questions. If you are live and still connected, raise your hand. Okay. There is a question how social science researchers can use ChatGPT. I think you have answered, but there was a follow-on question which I was summarizing, which is related because you have mentioned Elicit. There were 2 other tools getting mentioned here. Where is that question gone? Just a minute. Yeah, is how consensus and scholarly apps are compared to Elicit. Are you aware?
How consensus and scholarly apps are as compared to Elicit? Consensus I've not used before, so I cannot comment on that. On illicit and scholarly apps, scholarly apps, does it simply refer to Google Scholar or to other scholarly apps? Are you
No,
aware, Melinda?
scholarly also is like illicit, but
I see.
the reference concepts it picks up from Wikipedia.
I see. So you're more familiar with that one.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. So illicit today has improved quite a lot as compared
Yeah.
to scholarly. Those who has asked the question, illicit does not have a advanced feature what scholarly gives in terms of summarizing the document, which I think scholarly will surely score there. But illicit today is free. I don't know whether they will charge tomorrow with the new version. So illicit is a preferred option right now. And illicit for reading the PDFs, you can add the topic which scholarly does not have. Scholarly has a fixed topics which it parses. Illicit is very flexible in parsing the documents. So that is what the answer was. How can generative AI help salespeople? I'm not sure. Sasha, it is yours.
Yeah, well, many ways. It can come up with ideas. It can improve copy text or even write copies. It's one of the most popular applications, I think. Then you can challenge your own approaches in sales. You can practice talking to the generic customer. You can assign different roles to ChatGPT that put you in different situations. And practice makes the master, we say. So it's a good tool, I think, for interacting and practicing your interaction in general.
Okay.
And again, if
And
you're doing real research, like market research, then you can also use it in a way similar to what I presented. Like actually, the project I introduced in the beginning about the student reviews, in a way, it is also to sell our program, right?
there is a question from Avi Nish saying that whether it will get caught under plagiarism, but he has asked under sales. I'm not sure, but you can have a general answer with respect to plagiarism. If he is online, he can
Yeah,
raise the hand. Yeah.
yeah, that is a large concern. You cannot simply ask ChatGPT to write your thesis and submit that. That would indeed be plagiarism. So there need to be some dividing lines here to still make it your own work. And one important component is the transparency. So you really need to indicate what you use ChatGPT for. So typically, if you indicate that this whole thesis, it's one big quote of an AI system, that will not fulfill the academic requirements for that project. That might not even be plagiarism because you made it transparent. If you try to hide that and pretend you wrote it yourself, that would be plagiarism. So the dividing line here, it's mostly the transparency, but then once you make that clear, it becomes about the content and about the contribution of your scientific work.
Yeah, I think there was a Joshu Patro. He says, Madam, sirs, I have joined a bit late due to work. Will there be a meeting recorded provided? Yes, we will provide, and it will be available on SPJMR site. There are no questions there. No. So I think we are coming to an end. So before we end, I will give you 1 minute, Sasha, then 1 minute to Nef, and then I will conclude and my concluding remarks. Sasha first, and then I will give to Nef.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really like to see all the questions. That's important input for me. It really helps me to understand what's interesting for you. I can look more closely into some of the stuff. It's always a good starting point to start with the questions. And thank you for the attention and the time here. Thank you, Milind. And hopefully see you soon again in one of these webinars or in Reutlingen.
Okay. Sasha, Nef, your
Yes,
concluding remarks.
Yep. Also, thank you all for your attention today. I think that the subject that we brought with my colleague Sasha, it seems to have generated quite a lot of interest. Sasha is one of the professors in the MSc in Global Management and Digital Competencies. It was very interesting to hear what kind of questions came from the audience today. I think that this whole area of digital disruption is one that is so valid today. It affects all parts of our lives. And I think when we think about management of the future, I think that your future manager needs to have the right skill set to be able to manage this tool. I mean, Sasha has made it really clear it's a very powerful tool, but if you don't know how to master it, then there can be huge problems attached to it.
Okay. So I would like to thank both of you. It was very wonderful having this interaction. I would like to thank all the participants for their active participation, giving questions before, asking questions during the interaction. Incidentally, today no hand was raised for audio questions, but that's fine. I mean, because today is Friday, generally we run this on Thursday, so people must have adjusted these timings. I would like to thank Dipali, Nusrat for their arrangements, bringing this webinar to all of you, and hope to see all the participants on the next webinar, and hope to see both of you again for a very interesting topic on the generative AI. Thank you and good night and good evening.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.